Let me first say I want to be clear that my opposition, that I'll announce briefly, to moving this resolution by UC today is not by any means because I disagree with the assessment of China's abhorrent human rights record or the importance of the Olympics living up to the higher standards in upholding human dignity. The Olympic Charter states that the goal of Olympism is to promote, quote, a peaceful society concerned with the preservation of human dignity. Beijing has not, by a long shot, earned the honor of hosting the 2022 Games. Now, my record is crystal clear when it comes to calling out and condemning China's horrific record on human rights and the threat it poses to the United States and the rest of the international community. As my colleagues know, during my years in Congress, I have introduced, advocated for, and helped pass legislation on behalf of the people of Xinjiang, Tibet, Chinese civil society dissidents, a democratic and autonomous Hong Kong, supporting democracy across the Indo-Pacific region. Just recently, I introduced a comprehensive bill to strengthen the United States across various sectors to best confront and counter China's efforts. I also recently released a report about the necessity of standing up against China's dangerous new digital authoritarianism. So there's no question that under Xi Jinping, China has taken a great leaps backwards on human rights, establishing concentration camps in Xinjiang, instituting a surveillance state that not even George Orwell could have imagined, and crushing any thought and ideas that deviate from the dictates of the party. China's rise, bringing hundreds of millions out of poverty during the last century, is something the Chinese people can be justly proud of. But Xi Jinping's dystopian totalitarian vision, currently crushing the Chinese people, is one of the century's great tragedies. So I'm very sympathetic to the goals of the resolutions and the sponsor of the legislation. However, I believe these issues merit serious discussion and drafting of the appropriate language before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I have been urging Chairman Risch to hold a legislative markup for months to discuss the many pressing pieces of legislation members of both sides of the aisle have had pending for many months. So I would, in response to the gentleman's request, say that there is a human rights crisis much closer to home that we have discussed before the committee. We have an opportunity to address people suffering from a dictatorship who right here in the United States, many of whom live in Senator Scott's state of Florida. For the second time in 2 weeks, I'd like to call upon this body to take up legislation the House has passed that would designate Venezuela for temporary protected status. I'm asking Republicans to remember that there was a time before President Trump when our nation stood in solidarity with the victims of dictatorship. Nicolas Maduro is a dictator, plain and simple. His regime is a cruel criminal cabal that has destroyed Venezuela. Some 200,000 Venezuelans currently live in the United States without legal status. They're unable to safely return to their homeland, and they would benefit from temporary protected status. I believe we have to do the right thing. We have to uphold American values and offer them protection. So, Mr. President, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent the Judiciary Committee be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 549 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Mr.